I never began music thinking or even hoping that it would be a full-time job, but I think sometime during Metro Area, maybe a bit later into our releases, during that first period of production, we started to get a lot of attention for our work, and it became sort of clear that we could generate an idea at home and many people could like it. And then we just started getting booked to play, and then I left my old work and I just never went back. So it was never really a plan. It was just something that happened, and it was an opportunity that I took. I think that when we started, both Morgan and myself, and probably other people in our generation, making electronic music was a very fringe thing. It wasn't something that a lot of people did or knew how to do, and it also wasn't very fashionable. It was something that we had to kind of piece together our equipment and borrow a lot of stuff and really do a lot of research to find out how to do it. And now I feel like it's very popular. All the means to make the music are available to anybody. There are tutorials that you can watch online to figure out how to do certain things. So in a way, everything's changed. If you want to jump into making music electronically with computers and synthesizers, it's never been easier. Metro Area comes from the desire to get back to more of that mix of live and electronic sounds, because at the time when we started, the dance world was very divided into, like, you would have house music, and then you would have techno and drum and bass and breakbeat music, but it was all very loop-based music, and it was all based on synthesizers and samples. And that's fine. Electronic sources are great because we use them a lot of times. I love synthesizers, and Morgan does too. But there was something about just having very loop-based music that made us want to kind of go back and look at old disco records and try to figure out what made them what they were, how they were produced, what made them more like songs, and how to be a bit more musical with the same sets of tools. So that's pretty much what gave. I mean, in terms of people thinking that producing is somehow better than DJing, I think it's ridiculous. I think that there are fantastic DJs that can do things that a producer who is new to DJing could never do. DJing really requires a sensibility of how to understand a room full of people, and also to translate your personal style and personal interests to a room full of people, and I think that's a real art. And I don't think that skill should be diminished or put lower than the skill it takes to produce a record. They're both completely different things. There are a lot of really horrible producers also, so just because you're able to make some sounds and put them together and make a track doesn't really make you better than a DJ. So I think it's sort of a strange construction that's come about recently, only because it's really easy for people to do both now. You know, you can jump back and forth from being a producer to a DJ, and people kind of conflate the two and combine the two. But if you really look at each one specifically, it's very clear that there's a deep art and way of doing things behind both DJing and producing. Right now I'm really into synthesizers that are from the mid-70s, before something called MIDI came out. MIDI is a very late 70s, early 80s standard for electronic instruments. It's what most people use now, but there used to be synthesizers that came out in the mid-70s that make a really interesting, almost like science fiction sort of sounding tones. they're almost like synthesizers for organ players because they don't have very many controls. So things like that, like from 1974 to about 1977, instruments by Moog and Korg. Yeah, I never really thought of that before tonight, but as we were talking about before, I sort of associate our sound with early evening and warm weather. So some sort of summer, early evening kind of vibe. I don't know about forever, but I do think that it's possible for a band or music project to have a lot of longevity, more so than they do today, if they're encouraged to develop what they do and to broaden their ideas and to grow as artists. I feel like today it's really left up to the artist. The artist doesn't have very much sponsorship except for what the artist builds for his or herself. So a lot of times independent artists don't have a lot of funding to keep going from what little they make. Whereas back in the days where we think of the best music being made, like the 60s, 70s, 80s, companies would put a lot of money behind an artist and enable them to grow. And whatever they did was, as long as it was working, was okay, and they would be nurtured to do that kind of work and to grow as artists. And as a result, they had long careers of many albums. And today's music industry sort of doesn't really support that. But that said, I think it is definitely possible, but it's very tricky, you know. And the artist has to be able to have the working conditions to be able to concentrate on his or her sound and bringing it to the market. Well, I launched a label called Startree. It's a new label that I'm doing with Word and Sound, distributor from Germany. And I released the first single last December, the disco record. I might play it tonight. It's called All Night People by Fun City. And so Startree, I'm really looking forward to putting all my... Hey, this is Darshan Jesrani from Metro Area and Startree, Brooklyn, New York, and I just wanted to say hello to the insiders. Thank you.